The Vatican is hiding things from you in plain sight, and you probably haven't even noticed. Prepare to have your mind blown by the stolen obelisks of Vatican City, the mysterious pine cone statue in the Vatican Courtyard, and numerous other symbols rooted in ancient paganism. Are you ready to learn the truth? Let's find out. Pineal gland and pine cone symbolism. In a courtyard in front of the Vatican Museum, known as the Court of the Pine Cone, stands a massive 13-foot tall bronze pine cone. But why is it there? Officially called the Fontana della Pigna, this pine cone was originally part of a Roman fountain. It once stood beside the Temple of Isis near the Pantheon. During the Middle Ages, it was moved to be displayed in the courtyard of the old St. Peter's Basilica. However, in 1608, it was relocated to its current position. For anyone visiting Vatican City, seeing the Fontana della Pigna is probably on their itinerary. But do they truly know the story behind this mysterious pine cone? Deep inside the human brain, there is a small, enigmatic gland that has fascinated people for centuries, the pineal gland. This pea-sized, pine cone-shaped part of the endocrine system is located near the brain's center. It has long been associated with symbols of sacred eyes and pine cones in ancient cultures. But what's the big deal with this tiny gland? The pineal gland, also known as the pineal body, is found in most vertebrates and is often considered an atrophied photoreceptor or vestigial eye. Despite its small size, it is easily visible on modern X-rays due to its high level of calcification. Scientists have only recently begun to uncover its biological purpose, but the intrigue surrounding it dates back millennia. Named for its resemblance to a pine cone, the pineal gland has inspired numerous cultural symbols. In ancient times, the pine cone was seen as the fruit of the evergreen tree, symbolizing eternal life. Its shape also made it a phallic symbol, representing the creation of life. But how does this all tie back to the pineal gland? Ancient civilizations worldwide featured pine cone imagery in their art and rituals. In Assyria, winged genii often held buckets and pine cones in palace reliefs. Some of these images can be seen at King Sargon II's palace in Dur-Sharrukin, dating between 713 and 713 and 716 BC. These figures used pine cones in purification or fertilization rituals, emphasizing their sacred significance. In Egypt, the staff of Osiris, dating from around 1224 BC, depicted two serpents intertwining up to a pine cone at the top. Some researchers connect these serpents to the Hindu concept of Kundalini energy. The pine cone likely symbolized the pineal gland or Ajna chakra, also known as the third eye. Even the Greeks and Romans featured pine cone symbolism. Dionysus, known to the Romans as Bacchus, often carried a thyrsus, a staff adorned with ivy leaves and topped with a pine cone. This staff was used in mystic rituals, highlighting the pine cone's spiritual importance. The Romans took it a step further by constructing a massive bronze pine cone statue, which, as you now know, resides in front of the Vatican today. So, what's the connection between the pine cone and the pineal gland? Many believe the pineal gland is linked to the concept of the third eye, representing spiritual insight and higher consciousness. Ancient cultures seem to understand this, using the pine cone as a powerful symbol of enlightenment and eternal life. From Assyrian purification rites to Egyptian spiritual staffs and Roman fountains, the pine cone has long been a potent symbol of life, enlightenment, and the mysterious powers of the human brain. Is there something the Vatican knows that it doesn't want to share with the rest of us? Sibyl and dragon worship. Have you ever wondered why some symbols in religion look oddly familiar or ancient? Buckle up, because we're diving into a whirlwind of history, ancient gods, and some unexpected fashion choices in the Catholic Church. Let's unravel the mystery of Sibyl and dragon worship. First, let's talk about symbols. Since ancient times, symbols have served as a secret language in religions, from Egypt to Rome, conveying powerful meanings often linked to gods and spiritual beliefs. But here's the kicker: many of these symbols are still around today, hidden in plain sight, often unnoticed or misunderstood. Take a stroll through a Catholic church, and you might notice some curious headgear. The zucchetto, a small skull cap worn by priests, cardinals, and the Pope, isn't just a quirky fashion statement. So why do Catholic leaders wear it? Well, it's not just about covering bald spots. The zucchetto has roots in the ancient worship of Sibyl, the mother goddess of Rome. Back in 2000 BC, Sibyl's followers, including sun priests in Egypt, wore a similar cap to show respect and submission to this powerful goddess. But hold on to your hats, because the plot thickens. The Bible itself warns against worshipping Sibyl, known in some texts as Ashtoreth, a goddess of fertility, sexuality, and war. In Judges 10:6, the Israelites are condemned for serving the Baals and the Ashtoreths. Similarly, in 1 Corinthians 11:7, it says that a man shouldn't cover his head since he is the image and glory of God. So why do the most prominent Catholic leaders wear the cap of Sibyl? Good question. I don't have a definitive answer for you. It's a bizarre tradition based on pagan beliefs that's still practiced today. And speaking of head coverings, what's up with the mitre, the tall pointed hat worn by Catholic clergy? Well, this unusual hat represents Dagon, the Babylonian fish god. Yes, you heard that right. Dagon was a big deal in ancient Babylon, symbolizing agriculture, abundance, and good fortune. Babylonian priests wore fish-shaped headdresses, with an open fish mouth on their heads and a fish's body draped over them like a cloak. But this was no mere costume, it was a serious religious symbol. And guess what? The same fish-inspired fashion sense is alive and well today. Catholic cardinals, bishops, and even the Pope wear a mitre that looks strikingly similar to Dagon's headgear. You can even spot Pope Francis wearing this ancient symbol. According to Jeremiah 1:16, God warned the Jews against worshiping Babylonian gods, yet here we see a nod to these deities in modern religious attire. That can't be good, can it? So why do these ancient symbols persist in the Catholic Church? Is it a nod to tradition, a hidden message, or something else entirely? It's a question worth pondering next time you see one of these symbols. From Equinox to Easter. Want to know how we went from a solemn resurrection story to bunnies and eggs on Easter? You're in for a treat. It doesn't make much sense when you think about it. I mean, what do bunnies have to do with Jesus? And bunnies don't lay eggs, so how do they fit in? Grab your baskets, and let's hop into the colorful history of this springtime celebration. Easter, celebrated by Christians worldwide for about 1,700 years, marks Jesus Christ's resurrection. But how did we end up with eggs, bunnies, and baby chicks in a story about crucifixion and resurrection? Spoiler alert, it's all about rebirth and blending old traditions with new ones. Back in the day when Christianity was spreading, it didn't simply erase existing pagan customs. Instead, it cleverly incorporated them. This blending made it easier for people to accept the new religion while keeping some of their cherished traditions. Think of it as a cultural smoothie, mixing the old with the new for a flavor everyone could enjoy. Take the name Easter itself. Ever heard of Easter, the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring? No, you're not alone. According to the Venerable Bede, an English monk from the 8th century, April used to be called Eastermonth, or Easter month, named after Easter. During that month, people celebrated with feasts in her honor. This springtime goddess symbolized new beginnings, much like the themes of resurrection and rebirth in Christianity. Now, what about those eggs? Eggs have long been symbols of new life across various cultures. Ancient Persians used to give decorated eggs as gifts during the spring equinox, marking the new year. The egg, seemingly lifeless but bursting with new life, perfectly embodies the miracle of rebirth in both nature and Christian teachings. And then there's the Easter bunny, or should I say, the Easter hare. The hare has been a symbol of fertility and new life for ages. Haven't you heard the saying, breeding like rabbits? Usually it's directed at couples with lots of children. In 18th century Europe, Some tried to banish hair-related customs from Easter due to their pagan roots, but these attempts couldn't stop the bunny from hopping into our hearts and holiday traditions. Even the timing of Easter has a pagan twist. Instead of falling on a fixed date, Easter is celebrated on the Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox. This lunar scheduling mirrors ancient pagan practices and was decided at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Talk about moonlighting as a Christian holiday. As Christianity spread, it layered its resurrection story over existing spring celebrations of rebirth. This unification made the new faith more relatable to those who already celebrated the cyclical renewal of nature. So, next time you're nibbling on chocolate bunnies or hunting for Easter eggs, remember that these fun traditions are deeply rooted in ancient customs celebrating new life and rebirth. This is certainly something the Vatican would rather keep buried. The Pope would much prefer you believe that Easter has always been about Jesus and the resurrection. But now you know the truth. That doesn't mean you have to stop eating jelly beans, though. But first, it's shout-out time. A big thank you to Kiran Daredevil and Savannah Shepherd for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. The Obelisks of Vatican City. What is that tall, pointy structure in St. Peter's Square in Vatican City? Many people have wondered, no doubt. So, let me give you some answers. Standing proudly in front of St. Peter's Basilica is an Egyptian obelisk, and it's not just a fancy decoration. Obelisks were a big deal in ancient Egypt, marking the entrance to temples and signaling zones of sun worship. They represented Ra, the Egyptian sun god, who was the ultimate deity, the creator of humanity, and the source of all light and heat. You can think of Ra as the ancient world's MVP, providing everything from warmth to crops. So how did an Egyptian obelisk end up in the heart of Vatican City? Well, this particular one has had quite the journey. Originally constructed by Pharaoh Ramses I for the Temple of Ra in Heliopolis, it was later moved to Rome by the Romans, who were quite fascinated with Egyptian culture. Initially, it was placed near a shrine dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis and eventually made its way to the Pantheon, a temple for all the gods. When the Pantheon became a Roman Catholic church, it was dedicated to the Virgin Mary and all the martyrs, blending pagan and Christian traditions. The most famous move came in 1586 AD, when Pope Sixtus V decided to place the obelisk in front of St. Peter's Basilica. And it wasn't just randomly placed, it's surrounded by a sun wheel that aligns with the vernal equinox, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice. During sunrise on the vernal equinox, the obelisk casts a shadow toward the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. This isn't just a cool shadow trick. It's said to symbolize the union of the sun god and the moon goddess, a kind of cosmic pagan public display of affection right in the middle of Vatican City. Now let's flip open the Bible to Exodus 24:5, where God's second commandment says you shouldn't create a carved figure or any representation of things in the sky above, on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. It also states that you shouldn't bow down to them or worship them, as the one true God is a jealous God. So if that's the case, why does the Catholic Church venerate this pagan monument? The answer might lie in the blend of traditions. As Christianity spread, it often incorporated local customs to make the new faith more relatable. The obelisk, once a symbol of the Egyptian sun god Ra, became part of the Christian landscape. Perhaps this symbolizes the Church's embrace of all history and the continuity of worship, albeit with a different focus. The towering obelisk in St. Peter's Square is a monument that bridges ancient sun worship with modern faith, casting shadows and raising questions in equal measure. Why does the Church revere it? Maybe because, like the sun, history always finds a way to shine through. The peacock in ancient myth. Once you start noticing symbols around you, it's like finding hidden Easter eggs in a video game. They appear everywhere. Take the peacock, for example. The realization of its significance often dawns upon visitors to the Vatican. Many are eager to photograph the famous giant pinecone statue and the world within a world sculpture in the pinecone courtyard. However, what really stands out are the two regal peacocks on either side of the pine cone. The pine cone itself is no ordinary garden decoration. As I mentioned, it symbolizes the pineal gland, often called the third eye chakra. This mystical all-seeing eye, also known as the mind's eye, is associated with reaching higher consciousness and becoming a creator. That's quite profound for a courtyard ornament. But the peacocks are equally significant. In the Catholic Church, the peacock represents immortality and resurrection. According to legend, peacock flesh does not decay after death, and when they shed their feathers, new ones grow back even more vibrant. That's why peacock feathers are used to decorate churches around Easter, mirroring the resurrection of Jesus Christ. These feathers are also prevalent in art and iconography related to death and rebirth. But the symbolism of the peacock extends even further. In Muslim mythology, the peacock is said to guard the gates of paradise, but it also has a darker side. It is the creature that led Satan into the Garden of Eden to tempt Eve. In ancient Greece, the peacock is associated with Argos, a monster with 100 eyes, representing the all-seeing eye. This idea of the all-seeing eye ties back to medieval Europe, where peacock feathers were seen as bad luck. This concept connects to the third eye chakra, which is symbolized by the pine cone. So the presence of peacocks by the pine cone in the Vatican signifies duality: good luck and bad luck, higher consciousness and the subconscious. The peacock has deep roots in other cultures as well. In Egyptian mythology, it is associated with the sun gods Amun-Ra and Horus, both of whom experienced death and resurrection. In Hindu mythology, the peacock is linked to the goddess Saraswati, who represents knowledge and truth. However, here, the peacock also symbolizes unpredictability and mood swings. Hermetic philosopher Heinrich Kundrath called the peacock the soul of the world, symbolizing nature's power to bring forth life. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung viewed the peacock as a symbol of the self, which renews its feathers annually, much like nature itself. Ultimately, the two peacocks by the pine cone represent the duality of consciousness, reminding us that both positive and negative thoughts shape reality. Despite its beauty, the peacock is also a symbol of pride, one of the 7 deadly sins. Yet, this pride can be double-edged, urging one to take satisfaction in achievements without seeking undue recognition. Interestingly, peacocks eat poisonous snakes, symbolizing the conquest of inner demons. By defeating these demons, one can elevate consciousness and transform energy, leading to a higher state of awareness. That's certainly something to think about the next time you see a peacock, especially if you encounter them in Vatican City's Pinecone Courtyard. In the ritual of the New Year. When the Vatican celebrates New Year's on January 1st every year with a special papal mass, do they know they are really celebrating a pagan god? Let's talk about the fascinating origins of our New Year celebrations, which trace back to an ancient Roman god named Janus. Janus, a two-faced deity with no Greek equivalent, embodies traditions of reflection and hope. One face looks back to the past, analyzing what has been, while the other looks forward with anticipation. You can picture him as the ultimate time management guru and life coach. But Janus wasn't just a minor figure, he was the master of beginnings. The Roman poet Ovid described him as two-headed Janus, an opener of the softly gliding year. He presided over doors and gates, symbolizing all transitions. You know that old saying, when one door closes, another door opens. Janus was essentially the personification of that phrase. Whether it was the start of the day, month, or year, Janus was involved. January, the first month of the year, is even named after him. His role was to oversee all transitions, from stepping over a threshold to starting a new job, from birth to death, and even the shift from war to peace. The Romans took their doorways seriously, believing that walking through them with intention could bring good fortune. Images of Janus were often placed above doorways, or a key was carved as a reminder to be mindful of transitions. But why a key? Janus was often depicted holding a key in his hand to symbolize his control over doors, gates, and new beginnings. This practice of placing symbols above doorways continues in many cultures today, serving as blessings or welcoming gestures. So if you're looking to bring good fortune into your home, consider placing a meaningful symbol above your door. Honoring Janus during the new year involved rituals designed to please the god, with the traditional offering being a fitting gift representing Janus's control over gateways and new beginnings. To truly embrace the spirit of Janus, people would reflect on the past year and plan for the future. This ritual of looking both ways at the threshold of the new year is one of humanity's oldest and most enduring traditions. So as you ring in the new year, think of Janus, place a key above your door, and take a moment to reflect on the past and plan for the future. This ancient ritual has stood the test of time, and for a good reason. Who wouldn't want a bit of extra luck and wisdom as they step into a new year? The Wheel of Baal. Now, who's up for more sun worship? Earlier, I mentioned the Egyptian obelisk in St. Peter's Square, which is surrounded by a sun wheel, more specifically, the Wheel of Baal. But who is Baal? And what is a sun wheel doing in Vatican City? Right in the center of St. Peter's Square, you'll find an 8-rayed sun wheel, a symbol with deep pagan roots. At the heart of this sun wheel stands a towering obelisk, transported from Heliopolis to Rome by Emperor Caligula. Interestingly, some claim that the word obelisk translates to Baal's organ of reproduction or Baal's shaft. Yikes. Baal was the god of weather, specifically rainstorms and fertility, worshipped by the Phoenicians and Canaanites. He is best known today as the antagonist of the Yahweh cult of the Israelites in the Bible. According to cuneiform tablets from the mid-14th and late 13th centuries BCE, Baal replaced El, becoming the king of the gods. The Vatican's obelisk originally served as a monument in ancient Egypt dedicated to sun worship. Its presence in St. Peter's Square is more than just a nod to ancient architecture. It carries with it the symbolism of the sun, linking back to the worship of Ra, the Egyptian sun god. Adding a twist, there is also a smaller 4-rayed sun wheel in the square, similar to one found on an altar stone in the ancient temple of Baal at Hatzor. These sun wheels and obelisks were symbols deeply ingrained in the pagan cultures of the Romans and Egyptians. Now, here's where it gets even more intriguing. The Catholic Church, which established its dominance in Rome, incorporated these pagan symbols into its sacred spaces. Does this mean the Church secretly worships these ancient gods? The conspiracy theorists might jump to that conclusion. However, it's more likely a case of blending traditions to create continuity and acceptance among converts. The Romans were familiar with these symbols, associating them with their own gods and rituals. When the Church incorporated these symbols, it helped ease the transition for pagans converting to Christianity. Critics argue that this inclusion is a sign of idolatry, pointing to biblical passages like 2 Kings 21, which condemns the worship of false gods and idols. Interestingly, the sun wheel design also appears in other ancient cultures, like the Babylonian symbol of the sun god Shamash. This symbol featured a sun disk with 4 wavy rays, often found in Assyrian columns and wall reliefs. In a Christian context, the monogram of Christ, using the Greek letters Chi X and Rho P, sometimes forms a 6-rayed sun wheel when superimposed. So what's really going on in St. Peter's Square? The presence of these ancient symbols could be seen as the Church's embrace of history, an attempt to weave together diverse cultural threads into a single tapestry. Or maybe it's just that ancient designs look intriguing and add a layer of mystique to the modern religious experience. But symbols often carry the meanings we assign to them. So whether it's the sun wheel, the obelisk, or any other ancient motif, their significance evolves with time and interpretation. The Satanic Hexagram. The 6-sided star, also known as the Hexagram, is often associated with satanic rituals and dark magic. But what is it doing in the realm of Catholicism? First, let's clarify what the hexagram is all about. This 6-sided star has been a powerful symbol for ages, used by ancient Babylonians, Egyptians, and Assyrians. Cultures sometimes claim to have engaged in practices associated with the worship of dark forces. Helena Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society, controversially wrote, "Lucifer is the true god." She also included the hexagram in her society's emblem. This has led many to associate the hexagram with the dark side. Beyond Blavatsky, Satanists, Luciferians, astrologers, and witches have also used the hexagram to summon demonic powers. The number 6 is central to this symbol: 6 points, 6 triangles, and a 6-sided hexagon, which numerically equals 666, the infamous number of the beast. Here's where it gets interesting. Many Christians recognize this symbol as the Star of David, but historians argue that King David never actually used a star. The name might sound nice and innocent, but it could be a bit of historical misdirection. In reality, it was King Solomon, David's son, who dabbled in witchcraft, magic, and idolatrous worship. Solomon reportedly used the hexagram in rituals dedicated to deities like Ashtoreth and Moloch. In the Bible, Stephen accused the Jewish leaders, saying, "And you took up the tent of Moloch and the star of your god Rephan, the figures which you made to worship them." Acts 7:43. This accusation suggests that the hexagram had dark associations long before it became known as the Star of David. So why does the Catholic Church use this seemingly satanic symbol? The hexagram can be seen multiple times on the floor of the Vatican Museum and has appeared on the Pope's mitre in the past. But is it a sign of hidden allegiances or simply a misunderstood relic of history? Perhaps the Church adapted it to connect different cultures, or it's just another ancient symbol incorporated into its many traditions. Or maybe the Pope worships Satan in his free time. Okay, it's probably not that last one, but who really knows? Saturnalia turns Christmas. How did a rowdy Roman festival transform into the cozy, gift-giving holiday we now know as Christmas? To answer that, we need to take a trip back to ancient Rome and discover how Saturnalia morphed into one of the most celebrated holidays in the world, something the Vatican might not want people to know. If you've never heard of Saturnalia before, don't worry, you're not alone, and that's by design. Saturnalia was held in honor of the Roman god Saturn and was a festival that truly brought the party to ancient Rome. On this special day, roles were reversed, slaves and masters dined together, everyone wore colorful clothing instead of togas, and gambling was encouraged. Saturnalia celebrated the Golden Age, a mythical time of peace and prosperity. The festival, which had its roots in the Greek festival Chronia, took place in midwinter and marked the end of the harvest season. Saturn, the god of agriculture, was the star of the show. Festivities included feasting, gift-giving, and even crowning a ruler of Saturnalia, whose whims everyone had to obey. Think of it as an ancient version of the office holiday party, but with much more freedom and merriment. Gifts exchanged during Saturnalia included simple items like pottery, dice, and candles reminiscent of the trinkets we stuff into stockings today. Writing verses, similar to modern Christmas cards, was also a common practice. When Rome transitioned to Christianity in the 4th century AD, the exuberance of Saturnalia couldn't be entirely suppressed. Instead, many of its customs were absorbed into the new holiday we now know as Christmas. December 25th, celebrated as the birth of Jesus Christ, coincides with the Roman festival of Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. This clever move helped ease the pagan Romans into the new Christian traditions. Most scholars don't believe that Jesus was actually born on December 25th, rather. The date was chosen to merge with existing pagan festivities, making the transition to Christianity smoother. After all, what better way to convert people than by keeping their favorite holiday traditions? Today we see echoes of Saturnalia in our Christmas celebrations: the feasting, the gift-giving, and the overall sense of joy and community. Even the concept of Christmas trees has roots in this ancient holiday. Evergreens were revered by the Romans, who decorated them with sun symbols and stars, sounding quite familiar, doesn't it? In Scandinavia, when Saturnalia spread there, people would bring evergreens into their homes during the winter solstice to ward off evil spirits. While Saturnalia didn't become Christmas in a straightforward way, its festive spirit lingers. making the holiday season a time of warmth and togetherness for families worldwide. So next time you hang up your stocking or give a gift, remember that you're participating in a tradition dating back to ancient Rome, minus the togas and slave master role reversals, of course. Transubstantiation. The Holy Communion, or Eucharist, is one of the most intriguing aspects of Catholicism. During Mass, bread and wine are believed to transform into the actual flesh and blood of Jesus Christ, a process known as transubstantiation. Unlike other symbolic rituals, Catholics believe this transformation is literal. They consume the body and blood of Christ to become one with God. But where did this idea come from? Surprisingly, similar rituals existed in the ancient Greco-Roman world, particularly within the secretive mystery religions. These underground cults often involved shared meals where participants symbolically consumed their god's flesh and blood. Take the Mithraic Mysteries, for example. This cult, which was popular in the Roman Empire around 300 AD, worshipped Mithra, the god of friendship, contracts, and order. Followers of Mithraism would partake in rituals involving cake and a sacred drink called homa. This drink was believed to embody Mithra's essence. Sounds familiar, right? But that's not all. Even earlier, around 3100 BC in Egypt, priests consecrated cakes to transform them into the flesh of the goddess Sibyl, which were then eaten. This shows that the concept of consuming a deity's essence has ancient roots and wasn't unique to Christianity or Mithraism. So there you have it. The ritual of the Eucharist has deep historical connections, evolving from ancient practices where consuming a deity's essence was a common theme. While Catholics today might not think of Mithra or Sibyl during communion, these ancient traditions highlight a continuity in religious practices. From Egyptian priests to Roman cultists, the journey of this tradition is as rich and complex as the act of transubstantiation itself. Christian art from pagan Rome. In 2012, Vatican archaeologists showcased the beautifully restored tomb of the Obelisks family, giving us a fascinating look at how Christian art evolved from pagan Rome. This 3rd century tomb, discovered in 1919 beneath what is now a Fiat car showroom in Rome, revealed a mix of different religious symbols from that era. The tomb's walls are covered in paintings that blend pagan, Christian, and Gnostic symbols. Monsignor Giovanni Caru noted that these images marked the beginning of Rome's transition from various pagan cults and Jewish beliefs to Christianity. The artwork reflects a period when Rome was becoming more Christian. The murals on the walls featured great philosophers, colorful animals, beautiful landscapes, and scenes from Homer's The Odyssey. There were also enigmatic figures, such as a woman with a snake at her feet and a man creating smaller figures beside him. Scholars have debated whether these figures represented biblical stories, such as Eve in the Garden of Eden and the creation of Adam, or myths, such as a nymph in the Garden of the Hesperides and Prometheus creating man. Regardless, Fabrizio Visconti believed the overall theme was about awaiting the afterlife, a concept important to early Christians. The tomb's decorations illustrate the diverse and tolerant atmosphere of Rome in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, before Christians faced intense persecution. The restoration of this tomb took over a decade. Barbara Maze, who led the restoration, described the meticulous process of removing a thick white crust that had covered the murals. They used advanced laser techniques to carefully remove the crust without damaging the paint, revealing the vibrant images beneath. One surprising discovery was a scene from the Odyssey where Ulysses' men transform back into humans from swine. The Obelisks tomb, dating back to the early 3rd century, is a remarkable example of how Christian art evolved from Rome's pagan past. While it is only open to small, pre-booked groups, this hidden gem illustrates how Christian art gradually emerged.